the discovery that made certainty dangerous. For most of human history, certainty felt like safety, because knowing what was true reduced fear, simplified decisions, and made the world feel controllable. To understand when certainty became dangerous, we must return to a time when fixed beliefs protected survival, when clear explanations calmed uncertainty, and when doubt felt like a threat rather than a tool. In this earlier world, the cost of hesitation was often death. A moment of doubt, when confronted by a predator, could be fatal. A wavering commitment to a course of action during a hunt could result in failure. The environment selected for confidence, for the ability to commit fully and act without reservation. Early humans relied on certainty to act quickly. If something was believed to be dangerous, it was avoided. If something was believed to be safe, it was trusted. Confidence saved time, energy, and lives. The speed of decision-making depended on the strength of belief, and strong belief depended on the elimination of doubt. Certainty was not an intellectual luxury. It was a survival mechanism. Certainty created cohesion. Shared beliefs aligned groups. Agreement reduced conflict. Knowing replaced questioning. When a group shared certain beliefs about which foods were safe, which paths were passable, and which behaviors were acceptable, coordination improved dramatically. The social function of certainty was as important as its practical function. But slowly, something began to crack. Humans encountered situations where certainty failed. A trusted belief stopped working. An explanation collapsed under new evidence. A rule produced harm instead of safety. These moments of failure revealed that certainty, for all its practical value, was not the same as accuracy. A belief could be held with total confidence and still be wrong. At first, these failures were ignored. Certainty felt too valuable to abandon. Doubt felt destabilizing. The emotional cost of admitting uncertainty was higher than the practical cost of maintaining an incorrect belief, at least in the short term. Groups that had organized around shared certainties resisted evidence that threatened those certainties, because the social cohesion that certainty provided was more immediately valuable than the accuracy that doubt might eventually produce. Then, some humans did something different. They questioned what they were sure of. They noticed that rigid belief prevented learning. That confidence blocked correction. That certainty could preserve mistakes longer than uncertainty ever could. This observation was itself a form of learning, a metacognitive recognition that the process of knowing could be examined and improved. This was not confusion. It was awareness. And in that moment, certainty stopped being protection. It became risk. Because once humans realized that being too sure could be dangerous, knowledge itself entered a new phase, one where doubt was no longer weakness, but survival. As certainty began to crack, humans discovered the cost of being too sure, because fixed belief resisted evidence even when reality demanded change. Certainty simplified the world, but it also froze it. When beliefs became rigid, mistakes repeated. Harm continued. New information was rejected as threat rather than insight. The rigidity of certainty transformed what should have been a responsive system of understanding into a defensive structure that protected its own integrity at the expense of accuracy. Those who held certainty tightly gained power. Confidence persuaded. Absolute silence debate. Doubt was framed as weakness or betrayal. The social dynamics of certainty favored those who could project the most conviction, regardless of whether that conviction was justified. In a contest between a confident wrong answer and a hesitant right one, confidence often won. This created danger. When certainty guided decisions, consequences were ignored. People acted without reconsideration. Correction arrived too late. The lag between the failure of a certain belief and the revision of that belief could span generations, during which time the consequences of the wrong belief accumulated without check. Yet uncertainty felt uncomfortable. Doubt slowed action. Questioning created instability. Letting go of certainty felt like stepping into chaos. The psychological architecture that had been built around certainty, the emotional reward of knowing, the social approval of confidence, the cognitive comfort of resolved questions, all resisted the introduction of doubt. Still, humans learned that uncertainty had value. It allowed revision. It welcomed evidence. It kept understanding flexible. The individuals and groups that could tolerate uncertainty, that could hold questions open rather than forcing premature closure, proved better at adapting to changing conditions. Their understanding was less stable but more accurate, and over time, accuracy proved more valuable than stability. Progress began depending not on answers, but on questions. Learning required admitting what was not known. The advancement of understanding shifted from the accumulation of certainties to refinement of uncertainties, from claiming to know more to acknowledging that what was known might be incomplete. Certainty had once protected humanity. Now it was threatening it, and the mind was being forced to adapt. As doubt gained legitimacy, it began reshaping power, identity, and progress. Because once certainty lost its authority, questioning became a force of change. Beliefs were no longer accepted simply because they were old or shared. Evidence began competing with tradition. Experience challenged doctrine. Understanding became provisional instead of final. The concept of provisional knowledge, knowledge that is held as true until better evidence emerges, represented a fundamental shift in how humans related to what they knew. This shift weakened rigid authority. Leaders who relied on certainty faced resistance. Institutions built on absolute struggled to adapt. Knowledge stopped being static. The power structures that had been built on the authority of certainty found themselves undermined by the same mechanism that had created them. Because the questioning that produces better knowledge is the same questioning that challenges established power. But doubt also created tension. Without certainty, decisions felt heavier. Responsibility increased. Humans could no longer hide behind fixed truths when outcomes failed. The comfort of certainty had included the comfort of absolution. If you believed the right thing and the outcome was bad, the failure belonged to reality, not to you. Without certainty, the responsibility for outcomes returned to the decision maker. Uncertainty demanded humility. It required admitting error, revising beliefs, and living with incomplete answers. Confidence became conditional. The psychological posture of uncertainty, open, receptive, and willing to change, was fundamentally different from the posture of certainty, closed, defensive, and committed to preservation. Yet this flexibility fueled progress. Science advanced. Systems improved. Mistakes were corrected sooner. Learning accelerated through openness rather than defense. The institutions that embraced doubt as a methodology rather than fearing it as a threat produced more reliable knowledge and more adaptive organizations. The danger had shifted. Blind certainty caused harm. Thoughtful doubt reduced it. The mind was learning a difficult lesson, that not knowing could be safer than being sure. The climax of certainty becoming dangerous was not confusion, but responsibility. Because once humans understood that being sure could cause harm, they became responsible for questioning their own beliefs. Truth was no longer something to defend blindly, but something to test continuously. This shift transformed how humanity approached knowledge. Answers became temporary. Understanding stayed open. Progress relied on revision rather than confidence. Certainty still had a role. Action required belief. Decisions needed commitment. But certainty without reflection became a liability. The optimal state was not the absence of certainty, but the presence of certainty accompanied by the willingness to revise it. Today, this discovery defines modern thinking. We question sources, test claims, revise understanding. Doubt is no longer failure. It is protection. The danger is not believing something strongly. It is refusing to reconsider it. The discovery that made certainty dangerous did not remove truth from a world. It taught us how to approach it safely. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future.